Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Power Talk, and happy Monday. And I hope everybody is kind of beginning to unwind from that amazing full moon that we went through last week. Boy, my life has royally shifted. Doors are opening. New files are coming into the InnerSpeak protocol, which is just amazing. That hasn't happened for a while. And I'm just happy to be alive, and I hope you guys are too. So I've got a really great show for you today. I want to dive right in. My guest today is Reverend Misty Tyme. She's an author, she's a speaker, and she created the forgiveness algorithm. She's an ordained minister in the interfaith religion, and she's a mom. And she's had a long and very successful career in both clinical and corporate health care. So this is her passion, and I want to help her to share that passion. So welcome, Misty.
I'm so excited to be here, and I'm even more excited because I know that you know that forgiveness is such a big deal in our life.
It is. And, and you wouldn't think that something that's so obvious would be so difficult for us to do. We're good at the easy parts,
Yeah, I know. I can hardly wait to dig into why it's so difficult.
Yeah, let's do that because, we're really good at the easy ones.
Yeah.
But those, it's those difficult ones that we keep hanging on to and resenting that person, et cetera, et cetera. So why is it so hard for us to let go of some of that stuff?
Well, in any of my workshops or when I'm working with someone individually, this comes up all the time. And the reason it does is because there's tons of myths and misconceptions of forgiveness in our society. So that's really, really a big piece. Our society, especially our Western society, has trained us that we need an apology or we need the person or the situation to change. And the problem with that is that the person might not agree with you, first of all. They might be just happy-go-lucky with just the way things are with them and how they choose to do things. Now, we could talk about parents or spouses, children, our teenagers, all those expectations that we put out there. And our society has led us to believe that also if we forgive, we condone something terrible or something that bad happened to us. That has nothing to do with it at all. And good news that in all major religions, forgiveness is a common thread. We all know the golden rule, right? Do unto others. Well, I like to call forgiveness like the golden thread that's woven within all major religions and even society. I mean, Disney sings, let it go, let it go. And I won't sing, don't worry, but it's something very common. And there's nothing more frustrating than when somebody comes up to you and kind of taps you on the shoulder and says, you should let that go. It almost makes you angrier, ooh, and you want to tell, and when you're angry, you want to tell everyone. You want to tell your best friend, your spouse, even the family dog. And so we get stuck in this little circle of expectations, waiting for the other person to apologize and admit what they did was wrong. And we want to make sure we let everyone know we don't condone what they did. The problem is it has nothing to do with forgiveness. It really, really doesn't.
I think what people don't realize, Misty, is, because I work with energy, and they don't understand that as long as they're holding on to an issue, a resentment, a judgment, whatever, they are energetically entangled with that person. And that entanglement can't be stopped until they forgive, until they let it go.
Right, because we run it between our head and our heart. So you can tell me it. If you ever had a bad situation, then later on, you just keep thinking of what you should have said, how it should have gone, what they should have done. So we run all those scenarios over in our head, and then they bounce to our heart, especially if it's somebody that we love that hurt us. I always say, if somebody cut me off in traffic, I'm going to forgive them much quicker than if somebody hurts my children. Right? That's a different story. So the question becomes, we all know it's a good idea. We all know that it's going to be good for us. We're going to untangle if we are able to let it go. But our society and religion doesn't tell us how. They just tell us that we should.
Right. Yeah. And that's what's so beautiful about your work is that you created this thing called the forgiveness algorithm that kind of tells you how, right?
Right. Well, so I worked in medical for my whole career, both clinically and professionally and corporate, and everything is algorithms. And a lot of people say, well, what's an algorithm? An algorithm is a step-by-step process to solve a problem. In this case, unforgiveness, those ugly feelings we pick up, that anger, that pain is our problem. We need to figure out how to let it go so that we can truly forgive. And this came from a personal, of course, like good stories do, from a personal story. And I was sitting on an airplane and I was thinking about my very difficult family. I know probably you don't run into people with difficult families. Everybody seems to have a difficult family. I have not met a perfect family yet, but I really wanted to let go of my pain and my anger. And I started writing down my story, and at the end, forgiveness. And I needed the middle. So I went back and researched really what that was. And I'm so happy because I actually was able to trademark it and get it into hospice, different things. And it's truly a step-by-step process. We love maps. We love processes. And there's a reason for that. It gives us a tool to walk us through something, you don't know what you don't know, right?
That's true.
Right. So I went back and did the research, and I do have a picture of it right here so I can give everyone who's listening. So, and I love bright colors, So I simply did it in a simple, like a subway map almost. Right. Yeah. And understanding that we make stops and we might stay there longer. We might stay where we need to read and research. We might stay longer in expectations. But the fact is, this is your personal journey. And I help others walk through that with sharing my personal story of alcoholic home and a really tough situation with my twin brother. And ultimately, he killed himself. Yeah. And I was left behind with pain, anger, and grief. Very common in our society.
Yeah. And I think that your algorithm and that map really speaks to the left brain, and we're primarily linear left brain sort of folks. We're moving, I believe, we're in transition now, and we're moving to more balance, but we ain't there yet, and so that map really, I think, pulls in that left brain, and then the forgiveness work helps to connect it to the heart, which is right brain.
Exactly. So it's that bouncing from our head to our heart. It's going 16 inches down and back up again. Yeah. Right.
The longest 16 inches in the world.
Right. And so this helps you understand that bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad people. Mm-hmm. And I have other stories, not just mine, but other stories, whether it be addiction, people who share their own forgiveness journey in here. We like to know that we're not the only ones going through this kind of pain. And that's really why I chose to do the book. I really thought I would be working in hospice, and I do work in hospice, but now in forgiveness. But when I got out of seminary, I thought that would be my calling, and make plans, God laughs. And so it really turned out to be about forgiveness as a lifelong tool that people can use, and teaching others how they can use that, whether you're at the restaurant and you have to forgive the waitress for terrible service, or whether you have to forgive a parent who left you as a child, or a spouse who abused you. There's a lot of just stuff that happens to us in our life, and it's good work in the forgiveness piece.
Absolutely.
It lightens you up.
And it says in A Course in Miracles that there's no order of magnitude in miracles, but there's also, I think, no order of magnitude in forgiveness or the lack thereof and resentment, because a little bitty peccadillo can hold us stuck. just as much as your spouse cheating on you or somebody stealing your life savings or something like that. It doesn't matter. It's still that energetic entanglement that is not love.
Exactly. And also then if you think about it, how many times have you changed your behavior because of past hurts? It's not like we run into a person and if they trigger us, that's a very common word right now, but if they trigger us or they remind us of an old situation, we're immediately like this. And it's not really fair to the person because, right, now I understand learning from past situations, but forgiveness lets you come anew to every situation. And it has some tools, and it's funny, I use these tools so much. I cleared up some past pain, but it helps me forward, like not catch myself getting into more pain, because I can all of a sudden go, okay, I'm throwing some expectations out here. And I would like this person or this situation to do it this way. And I realize that's coming from me, but I don't know if they have the same idea.
Exactly.
Right, right. And then there's self-forgiveness for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't know how I managed to stumble on Ho'oponopono many years ago, but I did. And that was really pivotal in my journey because I began to realize the power of forgiveness. I mean, forgiveness had come into InnerSpeak when I channeled it in 2002. So it's been there all along, but I didn't really get the depth of it until I read the whole story about Ho'oponopono and started using that personally. And oh my gosh, yeah, it's pretty amazing.
And that's what's also what I talk about in my book. It's very important to find your thing. Some people it's therapy, some people it's life coaches, some people it's reading everything they can get their hands on. Some people it's talking to a best friend over a good cup of tea. Yeah. But it's at some point you also have to look inside. How are you doing that, right? How are you doing that? And in my own story, I looked inside and believe it or not, I didn't like what I saw. I realized that I was not being my true self to people who had hurt me. I was so angry. And I just knew that they should know how wrong they were. And you know what? If we were in a court of law, they would have been accused and would have been trialed. What they did was not good, but I'm not their judge and I'm not their jury. And that was a moment of, I need to stop working so hard to convict other people of their bad life choices, right? Yeah. And then, because I was so energetically connected, just like you brought that up. And it's amazing when I let that go, empathy snuck in. Empathy snuck in for them. So
funny how that happens, isn't it?
I know. And you're almost like, no, not empathy. That means I would feel sorry for them. And it's not feeling sorry. It's more understanding their life path, their direction, yes, their choices, and having compassion for the pain they hold.
And I believe that forgiveness is not something that we do for that other person. A lot of times I think we withhold forgiveness because we think, I'm not going to give that rat the benefit of my forgiveness, but we're really doing it for ourselves because generally they could care less, and more often than not they don't even know how upset we are.
And it's important that we understand that forgiveness is not by walking up to somebody and saying, I forgive you for being a jerk and a this and a that, which I had intentions to tell my twin brother. Yeah. And he killed himself before I did that, and I'm glad in the way I didn't say that, because if I would have, he would have just got defensive and said, that was not what that man needed to hear. What he needed to hear was, I was sorry for my bad behavior, for talking so badly about him, for being so angry at him, for not understanding his abuse that he suffered as a child, all those things. And then if he would have chosen to come forward with his pain and his apologies, that would have been lovely. But you never walk in expecting that. And we love to do that. We love to do the apology to get the apology.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one of those big no-nos. You know, the universal laws have taught us that we're not supposed to expect anything. We're not supposed to be attached to any outcome. And boy, do we do that, and we do it in spades.
Yes, and we do it to ourselves also. And
sure.
And I talk about self-forgiveness in the book, that it's sometimes harder to forgive yourself than somebody else, because we have a hard time having empathy for ourselves. We make bad decisions. We didn't take a job. We did take a job. We, you know, whatever it was that we did, we ate that cookie and then we beat ourselves up for it. All those different things. When you need self-forgiveness to understand you're human like everybody else, and you make mistakes. The key is learning from those mistakes, right? Absolutely. Learning from them, and let yourself off the hook.
Yeah, you know, and you know, it really is part of that being gentle thing, because we don't break a habit, you know, just because we think we want to. There's mathematical and scientific proof that it takes 21 days to shift a habit of doing wrong things or doing not healthy things or whatever. So, you know, we just have to kind of like keep putting one foot in front of the other and seeing what happens. So, can you hold your book up? I don't have a hard copy of it in front of me, but hold it up so that the viewers can see that book. Because, you know, listeners, you guys really need to get a copy of this, especially if you are feeling stuck, that you've got somebody somewhere in your life or yourself that you can't seem to move past. So, Misty, how can they get their hands on your book?
Well, they can get it at Amazon, of course, and it's also in a Kindle version, and also barnesandnoble.com, also from my publisher, Sacred Stories. And they can go directly to my website, and it's super easy, RevMisty, RevMisty.com. Super easy. You can also get it there. Also, there's tons of wonderful free downloads. I talk about family. I talk about going on vacation with family. All these different little tips I give at how to stay in forgiveness versus expectations. Yeah. So, and I'd also love to give one of your listeners one of the books. So you pick them, whoever does that, and you let me know, and I will send them the book.
I tell you what, why don't we have you send me, if you want a copy of Misty's book, send me an email, Jean@JeanAdrienne.com, and the first one I get is going to be the one that I'm going to send to Misty so that you can get into some forgiveness. So,
and I would love some forgiveness questions.
Yeah.
Like, send me forgiveness questions. Go to Rev Misty. Tell me your forgiveness story. Oh, it's nothing better than somebody who shares their forgiveness story.
Oh, yeah, because you might have another book coming after this one. You never know.
Maybe.
Yeah. So, what is your forgiveness toolbox? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
And I have that in the algorithm. You know, we all need to know what works for us. And so I give a lot of tools, everything from prayer, and some people that works well for them, therapy. I talk about what a therapist really is, what really happens when you close the door and sit down and start telling somebody your life. And then also different types of therapy. There's life coaches. There's just, you can bang a drum if you want to. There's talk about silence also, and spending some time with your heart, and good conversations. All those are little tips in my toolbox that you can do to help you on your forgiveness journey.
Cool. You know, at the end of the book, you talk about celebrating your life with forgiveness. So how do you do that?
Well, I mentioned it earlier, like once you figure out this magic thing called forgiveness and letting it go, all of a sudden I find myself and others that I work with, that work with me, is that they find themselves using the expectation, let it go tool, right? Like, oh no, I'm catching myself here. My heart hurts a little bit. Why? Why does my heart hurt? That person didn't live up to what I thought they would do. Then you can start going down that, because forgiveness is about knowing that you can no longer expect what you once did. from that person or the situation. You know, bad things happen to good people out of the blue, like lightning, bad things happen. So I find myself using that tool in my family life, in my professional life, and then even when I'm at the grocery store. And this is a true story. I was getting on a plane last week, and I was standing in line, and I just so happened to be right next to go up to the person with my ticket. A gentleman, and I use that word loosely, came running right in front of me and went right to the counter. I'm like, whoa. And
am I invisible?
Yeah, I was like, so was the whole line behind me. And so then when we got on the plane, I actually saw him, and he was just catty corner from me. And I remember thinking, what a jerk, what a jerk. And I caught myself. And I said, he hurt my feelings, and I don't even know him. And he doesn't, whatever is his stuff is going on, all of a sudden empathy snuck in. And I just made all these imaginary things, and I have no idea what was true about why he was in such a hurry. Why was he being so aggressive? I have no idea, but I knew that I could use my tool. I'll let that go. And then I sat back and said a little prayer and was like, you know, bless that poor gentleman that was being so difficult.
Uh-huh. So, you know, I mean, one of my favorite teachers is Matt Kahn, and he, you know, his thing is whatever arises, love that. And so rather than go into judgment, more often than not, when I can remember to, I just say, you know, I love you.
Yeah. And that's the forgiveness tool right there. Mm-hmm. That's the forgiveness tool. Now, does that mean that if I ran into that guy in the airport, I was going to invite him for lunch or dinner or something? No. He was kind of showing me who he was. And it wasn't somebody I wanted in my life. That's the other thing about forgiveness. You can also make boundaries with forgiveness. You can love with a 10-foot pole. You really can.
Exactly. Yeah. This is beautiful. So thank you so much for joining us today, Misty. This has been very enlightening. And people, if you really want to get deeper into this, get her book, The Forgiveness Solution. You will not be sorry that you did, because this really is the place where the rest of your life begins. You can't get on that path until you let go of the past and any resentments that you have built up in that time. So this is wonderful. And you can contact her off of her website, movingMisty.com. And don't forget to send me an email if you want your free copy of that book. We'll get all the information that we need to take care of getting that to you. And I want to invite you to join me again next week, because we're back broadcasting on Facebook. Rachel's upgraded the system, and hopefully you're enjoying this on Facebook as well as on the internet and other parts of the internet. I mean, next week, my guest is going to be Richard Haight. Now, he's been on my show before, but this new book that he has put out is about sacred plants. And he went on a journey to use some of the sacred plants that shamans in South America and people all over the world have used to help them move towards enlightenment. And what he's done is he's created a compendium that is very interesting to share his experience with some of these different plants. And I really enjoyed his journey, because I felt like I was there with him, and I also don't have to go there. You know, I mean, why would you want to do something that's going to make you sick as a dog? Get to enlightenment. So, you know, so there's that as well. So I think you're going to find this very interesting next week. And so until next time, remember, people who take responsibility for their lives create the realities they desire. Love you all. Ciao.
Thank you so much.